Hi all, welcome to part 6 module 6 computer networks. So here we will continue our discussion on the transport layer. So we already seen an introduction to transport layer protocol. Particularly last video we were discussing the TCP protocol. So here we will see the typical structure of the TCP header. So something again in the fifth part we seen the structure and the fields also familiar for you. So here we are going to see the first two fields in detail, that is a source port number and destination port number, or in general what about some detail about the port number concept and the 32-bit sequence number and 32-bit acknowledgement number. So these three fields we will see in detail in this presentation, and in the next part we will see the remaining fields including flags, window size, etc. Right? Regarding the port number, so these fields identify the local endpoints of the connection, something we already seen. A connection will be identified by socket, right, at the endpoint of the connection, and socket is further identified by the port number along with the IP address. So the source and destination socket numbers, that is a combination of the port number and port this IP address together identifies the typical connection in TCP. So if you you are already familiar with this IANA, right, Internet Assigned Number Authority, so who are responsible for managing the IP addresses and all, and the same organization is responsible for maintaining the official assignment of the port numbers for specific users. And port number we will see about them and how that assignment is done. So however, many unofficial uses of both well-known and registered port numbers occur in practice even, and that also, right. So even though it is officially allocated like this, some people are making use of them in an unofficial way. So regarding port number, you know, it's a 16-bit number, right? Something we already know. It's a 16-bit number. So let me change the color. So it's a 16-bit number, and using 16-bit, how many combinations are possible? 2 power 16, which is 65,536. That many different ports are possible, and the numbers will be ranging from 0 to 65,535, right? So now this whole range is further divided into three sub-ranges, like the well-known ports, the registered ports, and the last category, dynamic or the private ports. If you look at the well-known ports, out of this 65,536 combination, the first 1024 combination, that is 0 to 1023, are reserved for standard services or the well-known applications that can usually only be started by privileged users, like means in Linux you can see that super user and all. So only the privileged users can start such well-known application, and they are given some well-known port numbers in the sense that is not going to change. So they are permanently assigned these ports, and we will see the examples for well-known port number, of course. And these ports are assigned and controlled by IANA, right? Of course. Now if you look at the next category, that is from 1024 to, so it is ranging up to 49151, right? So 1024 to 49151. So that range is called registered ports. In the sense they are not assigned and controlled by IANA, but can be registered to prevent duplication. So if a particular application, it is registering against a particular port, so that the others will not be using it. So in that way, it will avoid confusion, right? So by looking at the registered list, everyone will be knowing which are all the ports that is being registered by other users, and whenever I'm coming up with a new application, I can register to something which is not used by others. So in that way you can prevent duplication of this usage of port number by making use of the range, that is registered ports. Now again we have a last portion called the dynamic ports. So of course from this 49152 to 65535, so that last range is called dynamic port. They are not assigned, they are not controlled, and either they are not registered at all. So something coming in the third category, like they are neither well-known ports, they are neither registered ports. So they are used for a temporary or an ephemeral basis as a private port. So for the time being, whenever a application that is neither registered or they are not, that's not a well-known application, they can directly go for a dynamic port and they can make use of them. So they are also called the private or the non-reserved ports or the ephemeral ports. right? So that about the classification, and it will be better if you know some of the well-known ports number in your mind, like, so these numbers are popular. So what I was thinking is I will show you how it is available. So just google, you will see the list of TCP and UDP port numbers. So in this way you can google it, and where you will get the list of all the that classification, that details will be given, well-known ports you could see. And here maybe 1024, in that range many ports were listed, but you don't have to remember all of them. So some of them which we are studying, that such application layer protocols and their port number, if you can remember, that will be good. So one of it is that port number 20, right? So here you can see for what purpose it is being used. It is used for the file transfer protocol, particularly for the data transfer purpose, and we will see this FTP protocol in our subsequent discussion when we see the application layer protocols. And now you can remember that the FTP protocol is using two port number 20 and 21, right? The 20 is used for FTP data transfer and 21 is used for FTP control transfer, right? And the file transfer, some control information is also to be communicated with the other end, and that time they will make use of the port number 21. So that about it. And again, if, this is another well-known application, that is a secure shell application for the security purpose, for secure logins, right? And for secure login, and the secure shell application particularly using the port number 22. Now the remote login application, RLogin is there, and this is the latest one, that is a telnet application that is used for the remote login purpose, right? And they are making use of the port number 23. Now the next one, 25, is another well-known application, that is a simple mail transfer protocol, SMTP. Again we may see this in our subsequent discussion on application layer protocols. So it's a mail transfer protocols, mainly used for the email communication. And another one in this range, many were there, you can just go through them, and so those who are familiar to you, it will be better if you can remember their port number. So here we have the port number 53, so that is particularly for that domain name service, right? One second, let's continue. So we were seeing the 53, right? So the domain name service. And another one you can remember is the 67 and 68. So port number 67 and 68, they were used by the protocol, that's a BOOTP protocol, and the DSCP. So we already seen this BOOTP and DSCP when in the 5th module, right? So they were doing the same purpose, that is what is done by reverse ARP. But reverse ARP is a network layer protocol, where BOOTP and DSCP is doing the same, but they are the application layer protocol, so they can do it in a more efficient way. So if you look at it again, this BOOTP DSCP, BOOTP is the same role is done by DSCP, and it is doing it in a more dynamic and better way. So in most of the application they will either use BOOTP or DSCP, and BOOTP is somewhat obsolete even, and the most of the BOOTP server and client applications were replaced by DSCP. So the same port number is being used or given to both BOOTP and DSCP, right? So the Bootstrap protocol, the server part is using port number 67, and the same thing is used by the dynamic host configuration protocol server part. Similarly, if you look at port number 68, it is used by the Bootstrap protocol client as well as the DSCP protocol client. So which is used for in your machine for, so what is their role? Like they are going to convert the MAC address to IP address, right? So whether you are using BOOTP or IP DSCP for that purpose, accordingly you can make use of the port number. Now the next one, this is also another one. The FTP protocol is something we already seen. Now we have a variation of it called the trivial FTP. The FTP protocol is by default running in the TCP protocol. The transport layer used by the application layer protocol FTP is TCP, where if you look at the trivial FTP, it is actually using what called the UDP protocol in the transport layer. So it is using the port number 69, right? This number is common for both TCP and UDP. And whether the application is using TCP or UDP is also listed in this list, you can see here. So this column is for TCP. If the application is using TCP, that S will be given something like that. If it is for UDP, accordingly. So in that way also you can see most of the applications whether they are using TCP or UDP. Now what about next? The well-known application HTTP, right? Hypertext Transfer Protocol. So the HTTP protocol is using the port number 80. So this is something I think most of you were knowing. Then 88 is also, you can remember, another one, Kerberos, right? It's a popular authentication protocol. Many were there, but something which I am familiar, I am explaining you that. So, and if you go further, we have this 109 and 110 used by the post office protocol, again for the in the mail purpose. So for downloading a mail, so we are using post office protocol, the POP protocol, and later we have another better version of this called the IMAP. So both are using for the same purpose. So if you look at 109, it's a post office protocol version 2, where 110 is post office protocol version 3. So you can remember 110 for us post office protocol version 3. So just think about its double. What is 110? 2 times it is 220, and 220 is actually used by the IMAP protocol. So that is also doing the same thing, right? So IMAP version 3. So right, in that way you can remember. Now 111 111, so that is again used by the Sun RPC protocol, the remote procedure call, right? Open network computing remote procedure call. Again I discussed with that UDP. So this is another application of UDP. UDP is preferred, but same way we have the RPC protocol that is running in TCP also. That is why both are giving you yes, but mostly by UDP. So its port number is 111. So another one, this 123 also you can remember, the network time protocol 123, right? Say that's all. Then yeah, IMAP version, other versions were there. 161, of course, another important protocol, the symbol network management protocol, SNMP. Okay, so that is using this. Now as I told you already, that 220 is used by Internet Message Access Protocol, IMAP version 3, 220. Okay. And now another important one is actually somewhat far away. Yeah, I think with this we will stop. 443, that is used by what called the Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure. HTTP is using 80, where HTTP Secure is using 443. So that is the thing. And of course many protocols were listed here, right? This hope you remember that Telnet application, which is using port number 23, and this is doing the same thing, that is remote login. Telnet is some modification of it, so that is using the port number 513, and it's the same thing is given a different purpose also, right? So like that you can go through the list. Yes, so we saw some of the well-known application, well-known port numbers, right? So let's summarize. So what are all the ports, well-known ports we seen so far? Something like so I just want your memory, like port number 20 is used by the FTP protocol for its data transfer, right? Data transfer. And another one, 21 is used by FTP for the control transfer, right? Control transfer. 22 is used by the secure shell protocol, and 23 by the Telnet protocol, and 25 by SMTP, simple mail transfer protocol. Then 53 is another important one, being used by the domain name system, DNS. Then 80, in between we have that 67 and 68, right? 67 is used by BOOTP or DHCP server app, and 68 is used by BOOTP or DHCP client program. And I think 69 is the one used by trivial FTP, right? Then we moved on to 80, the one used by the HTTP protocol. Then what else? 88 being used by the Kerberos authentication protocol. Then 109 and 110 used by the post office protocol. Then version 3, of course. Then 111 used by the Sun remote procedure call RPC protocol. 123 is being used by the network time protocol, and 161 is for symbol network management protocol SNMP. Yes, SNMP. And I think then we discussed 220 for the IMAP version 3 Internet Message Access Protocol, and 4434 the HTTP the secure HTTP. So these are all some important well known port number that you can remember. That will be good. And there are many, right? So hope you get a clear idea about the port number and its usage. So now about the sequence and the acknowledgement number. So that also let's see in this lecture. So this field is used to give sequence number to each and every byte transferred. So we already seen that TCP is a byte stream protocol, right? So UDP is of course the sequence number, acknowledgement number. That concept is not at all be there in UDP, right? So this is used for the reliability purpose mainly. With the help of the sequence number, the retransmission can be done nicely, and also the receiver can order the messages, right? It can filter the duplicates, and the acknowledgement number is something that is what the sender will be expecting as an acknowledgement. So as soon as the data is reached at the receiver side, the receiver is supposed to send an acknowledgement, where the acknowledgement number is normally the sequence number of the next expected frame by the sender. So in that way it is made. So the sequence number, for every byte we are giving some number in a continuous way. So if you look at the acknowledgement number, the ACK signifies the next byte expected from the source and is set to sequence number of the last byte received plus 1, because that is the one which I am expecting next. That is the way they are setting this, right? Now the acknowledgements are cumulative in nature instead of selective acknowledgement. So when it is cumulative acknowledgement for a set of communication, we have a single acknowledgement, so that will be a cost effective solution. Sequence number, but of course reliability is less, but this is a way typically used by TCP. Sequence number space is large enough of 32 bit, but the sequence number management itself, there are many issues, so for that we have to go some more detail in TCP. So for the time being, if you are interested, you can read from the textbook. It's very nice to understand. So what are all the problems? Some wraparound is there. Like you may be thinking 2 per 32 sequence numbers were there, but what is the guarantee that whether duplicate without any duplication we can send all bytes with the sequence number of the range 2 per 32? After some time, all 0 1 2 3 like that, all the sequence numbers will be consumed up to 2 per 32, and that time the sender will be forced to use the sequence number starting from 0 again. So what is the chance that the previous frame, which is byte, or the part of the segment which is sent with the sequence number 0, is still in the network, and the newly assigned particular packet of unit of data which is also given the same sequence number is both are in the network at the same time. Now this receiver can't do any duplicate filtering because both are having the same sequence number, but such a situation will not arise. So that kind of an analysis is there that you can see. So we have a concept called the wrap around time. The total time taken for consuming all the 2 per 32 sequence numbers, right? So using 32 bits, we have 2 per 32 sequence numbers are possible, say from 0 to 2 per 32. So as soon as you are giving sequence number, say from 0 to 2 per 32, say -1, again you will start giving 0 soon. So the total time taken to wrap taken to have this wraparound occur, or taken in that way all the sequence number were consumed, and we started using the zero sequence number again, is called wraparound time, and that you can calculate for a typical internet with its given its speed and all. So that is the way you have to see. And there is another thing called lifetime. So lifetime means once you start sending some information in the current scenario in the internet, after how long it will be reached at the receiver, or maximum how long a valid packet could be there in the internet in transition at any time. We have the TTL field and all. So with that, if the packet is looping for a long time, the TTL will be reaching zero and it will be discarded, of course. And for the safe delivery, so in worst case, how long the packet will be having a life once you start sending it, after how long it will be reaching at the receiver side. So that is a lifetime. And in a typical internet, it is something like in the current scenario with our current speed and all network congestion, by considering all these parameters, we have an estimate for it. It is around 3 minutes or 180 seconds. And the requirement is that always this wraparound time should be greater than lifetime, otherwise things will be complicated, right? If it is less than lifetime, just before the particular packet with the previous sequence number reaches the receiver, you may generate another packet with the same sequence number. So such a situation should not be there. So you always have to ensure that this is the case. But in the current scenario with our speed and all, this 2 per 30 is a very big number, we can ensure this. But of course, if it is situation is worst, we have to rethink whether this 32 bit is enough or not. So that are some of the challenges we are facing. And also sometimes we will start a sequence number with some random initial value instead of starting from 0. And why it is to be started from random initial value, that also you can think maybe as an assignment. If I keep on explaining all this, it will go beyond our syllabus, so that is why. So all those things are very nice to read, maybe from Tandem or for us, and you will get an idea about all those things, right? So normally what you will be expecting, the initial sequence numbers will be initialized from 0, but that is not the case. It will be initialized with some random sequence number, say some 528 something, and from that it will go up to 2 power 32 and then come to 0, 1, 2, 3 up to that initialized value. So in that way we will assign. So there is a reason for it, why it is so. And this random initial sequence number is also being communicated between the sender and the receiver during the connection establishment. Many parameters will be communicated each other during connection establishment phase. We will see them. So in TCP communication, the sender and the receiver window size and the sequence numbers space are related by the following formulas. This is something we already seen in our data link layer when we discussed that flow control. The same thing for ensuring that flow control. The sender window size plus the receiver window size should be less than the total number of sequence number, right? And window size concept, everything you know. Without waiting for acknowledgement, maximum how much data the sender can send is what we call as a sender window size. And similarly, how much data, what is the remaining buffer capacity of the receiver, something like that. So that is being communicated in that window field also, right? In the header, TCP header, we saw that in window field. Anyways, we will see them. So hope you remember this formula, something we discussed in our data link layer flow control that time. So the same reason applicable for this formula, the reason and all with example we already seen, right? Yes, with this we will wind up this particular part. Here we mainly seen that the concept of port number, particularly some list of well-known ports, and finally that sequence number and acknowledgement number concept. So hope you get an idea. Now in the second next part we will see further on the TCP header, the remaining fields. Thanks for watching.